Welcome back to our 6-part series on dysfunctional relationships, the relationships of inevitable harm. And today we are going to be talking about the codependent and the antisocial. Do you feel responsible for other people's feelings? Do you feel compelled to help people solve their problems by offering unsolicited advice? Do you try to anticipate other people's needs and try to affect their behavior, giving them lots of suggestions and trying to take care of their feelings, but then you feel resentful and used when they don't do the same for you? Do you find it easier to express anger and injustices about something done to someone else than done to you? Do you feel safest and most comfortable when you're giving to others? Do you feel insecure or guilty whenever someone gives something to you? Do you feel empty or bored or worthless if you don't have someone to take care of? Do you often try and catch people in their misbehavior? Are you sometimes unable to stop talking, thinking, or worrying about other people's problems? Do you lose interest in your own life when you're in love? Do you worry that people are going to leave you? Do you stay in relationships that don't work and tolerate abuse in order to keep people loving you? Do you leave bad relationships only to form new bad relationships? If that sounds at all like you, then you are codependent and you need to listen to this. Codependents have very low self-esteem. It's usually coming from a background in childhood that had to do with a lot of chaos, probably an alcoholic parent or an addicted parent, or being put in a position of having to take on too much adult responsibility before you were ready. Some of the other ones, the other things we've talked about, the pleaser and the selfless person and the sinner, they are also could be considered codependents, but we're breaking, and they all kind of are, but one we're calling codependent right now is the one that kind of fits the criteria as laid out by Melody Beattie in her very famous book, Codependent No More, which I'll include one of these times when we do a book review. I would like to have all of you get a really good library of books to read on these subjects. A codependent has a pattern of getting involved with people and trying to rescue them and take over their lives, control them, get them changed and all that. But deep down, they really blame others for their problems. They blame others. They're a little unlike the other categories that we talked about. Like, for instance, the sinner who definitely thinks that everything wrong in the world is because of something inherently wrong with her. Not so here. The codependent believes that other people are, if they would change, she would be fine. So there's a little distinct difference there. And we do, like I said, we do interchangeably use some of these terms. Like, a lot of us call all of ourselves codependents, and I don't know that we all are necessarily codependents, especially not if we're in recovery, but even when we were involved in our relationships, I'm not sure that the reason we were doing it were exactly codependent reasons. That we are definitely all empaths, for sure. And we may just have, had to learn, didn't know better. And so, now we're knowing better and doing better. But I don't think all of us, I know that the codependent, this codependent definition didn't really suit me that well. I was probably more of the selfless or the pleaser type. So, yeah, they're just words, so it doesn't really matter. But we're just kind of trying to figure out the roots of where things came from and how to heal now. So it can kind of help to get some definitions and wrap your head around how things came to be. And it does seem that all these little nuances, even though they have a net result that's very much the same, the little nuances did come from slightly different origins. you could say the same origin in that it came from a dysfunctional childhood, but how dysfunctional? Because how to fix it could be slightly different, and I think in most cases it is. In all cases, though, this turns out, it ends up being the same thing. We have to come to terms with the fact that we were emotionally abused, and we have to heal from that. How are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? We're going to do that the same way. We're going to take these steps of recovery, and we're going to identify the problem, and we're going to acknowledge. We're going to embrace reality. That's my big one, of course. Embrace reality. We're going to acknowledge that there's a problem. We're going to come to very good terms, understand ourselves well, and know what we need. We're not going to jump into another relationship. We're going to figure out ourselves first, get comfortable with some time alone, get to be good friends with ourselves, love ourselves, reparent our inner child. All of these things have to be done. They have to be done, or you will repeat it again and again. I promise you that you will. And I know that the most tempting thing to do is to distract ourselves with yet another love affair. But when that one ends, you'll be even that much more crushed. Let me tell you a little story about myself. I'll interject here to give you a little bit of my own story. Is that when I went through this terrible divorce, which I talk about when I do a little testimony and tell my story, and I probably interject this in it as well when I do that. But in the throes of this terrible divorce, after 10 years from a sociopathic man that just tortured me. In the throes of that, my lawyer declared his love for me and told me that I was everything he ever wanted in a woman. And here I am at my lowest moment in my life. I mean, I never thought I'd be so low. And I'm thinking, geez, if he likes me now, imagine what he would think of me at my best. This has got to be legit, because who would ever like me right now? I'm a mess. And oh yeah, he laid it on thick. Oh, he did the total love bombing all over again, and I fell in all over again, hook, line, and sinker. I was like, well, now it proves it's just him. Something was wrong with my husband, because, and I of course told myself, this is why it all happened. It all happened so that I would meet this great guy, right? No sooner was the ink dry on my divorce papers than he dumped me. And I was doubly devastated. It was like the nails on my coffin. And it would have been bad enough. Just without that, it would have been bad enough. I would have been in bad enough shape. But this just took me to my knees. I was just, double heartbroken, double sideswiped. I mean, it's just, it was awful. And I did that because I wasn't healed. I would have been more protected, had I not been so vulnerable, had I not been, and of course it was very unethical what he did, very unethical. And, if I was that kind of a person, I probably would have gone after his license and everything. But I first of all, it happened well before I understood what it was. So, by the time I even mentioned it to him, just, he was like, he was already all over the statute of limitations and all that. So it was too late for me to have done that, even if I was so inclined. But it was a really brutal, bad thing that he did. But, of course, I let it happen. And so, I'm not a victim, because, I was a grown woman who made a decision and a choice that I could have said no. Although, here I was, I had lost everyone. I mean, I had a mass exodus of every person in my life. All my money, all my assets, everything was going away from me. And I was in this scary world of courts and all of that. And it was all unfamiliar to me, and the world seemed so unkind. And then here was this guy saying, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to guide you through this terrible thing. And you're fine and you're perfect, and I'm going to be here to take care of you and your kids. and all that, and I went for it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I had to be my own hero, and I had to take care of my kids, and nobody did any of that for me. So, that's the lesson. I can speak to that one from my own experiences. So we have to heal ourselves, or just damage ourselves and our children even worse. So that's today. That's this week's session on this 6-week series. We have 2 left. So now we've done the selfless, the pleaser, the sinner, and the codependent. And next time we're going to talk about the victim. So come back for that. Thank you.